welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher. So let's jump right into it. We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and we are back on Memorial Day weekend. So I'm not sure how many people we're going to get in the audience today. Hopefully a bunch, because I have one of the best guests I've ever had on this channel. So stick with us today, guys. When I tell you his wealth of knowledge is vast, some of his comics that he has in his collection are amazing. So we're going to take a look at some of those there today. And of course, hear what he has to say about the current comic market. So before I bring him on and he is sitting backstage, I want to go over a couple things with you guys, stuff I have coming up on the channel, and then we'll bring him off. Okay. First things first, what I want to actually promote is obviously Keston himself. If you guys haven't checked out his channel, Keston's Old School Comic Books, his channel is fantastic. So when we start talking to him today, make sure you're subbed up to him. He actually just released a video right before we went live. So I'm going to actually show you guys that as well, because why not promote the man himself, because he is so freaking awesome. And there you go. He just actually shared it maybe 2 minutes before we went live. So after we're done with the live stream today, make sure you go watch this video. I'm sure it's a banger. That's what I am going to be doing. So again, a few minutes, we're going to jump around with him, but I want to just like go over a few things upcoming. You guys know I always do this when I start a live video of what's coming this week. So tomorrow, even though it's Memorial Day, we're dropping the eBay comics video. Some insane stuff that I found sold the prior week on eBay, guys. You're not going to believe this one. Ice cold comics, stuff that has gotten crushed that I wasn't expecting to see. And we're going to go over it with Keston about some of these books, why they're dropping, and of course, some why they're staying where they are. But check this one out tomorrow. And then we have Tuesday. We have something that is so important. Everybody in our community, I think, should watch this video. Beware, what kind of comic collector are you? And we kind of touched on this on my last live stream about what kind of books you're collecting right now. And we're going to touch on it today with Keston as well. Just be careful right now where the market is, what you're buying. And, you know, we'll get into certain things in this video that I think is really important. And the last thing before I bring our guest on today is this. Where is it? There it is. All right. I have a slew of new merch for sale, guys. I went out and did some cool things. I have some new, you guys know I collect Jordan 1s. So I had to do a t-shirt, and there's long sleeve t-shirts as well on the Jordan 1s. Got them, stuff like that. We also have some long sleeve t-shirts. Mighty Comics University now is there as well. So if you're interested and you want to support the channel, the link is in the description of every video of the merch that's available for sale. Everything that proceeds to this go to giveaways. And you guys know, once we hit 5,000 subs, and I think we're only like 135 away, we're giving away an Iron Man 1, and then every 1,000 from here on, guys, we're going to be doing that. But now it's time. Let's bring on the guest of honor. Keston, welcome to the channel, bud. How are you?
Doing great, Lawrence. Thanks for having me.
Now, when I reached out to you, and it was short notice, we were talking about before we jumped on that I had sent them an email like the beginning of the week, and then I didn't hear from them. So I'm like, oh man, what if it didn't go through? So I ended up emailing him again saying, you know, did you get my first email? And he said no. So I'm like, oh shit, let me resend the whole thing that I sent, because I was trying to have him on, and I'm just so happy that he was able to agree and had some time today to jump on with us.
Yeah, it's my first time. Glad to be here. And Lawrence, you reached out to me. Maybe it was, gosh, 8 months ago or something.
Yep.
We tried to connect. We just couldn't do it. So I was like, I'm not going to miss a second opportunity.
Yeah, and like I said, I really appreciate it. It was short notice. We actually got some 18 people in the chat already. So if you're in the chat, drop a comment below. Like I said, make sure you sub to Keston, because he's one of my favorite YouTubers. So Keston, what we have here, tell us a little bit about you know, how you got doing into the YouTube thing.
Yeah, sure. It was actually because when COVID-19 hit, in my professional life, I had a really hard time speaking to the camera. So I give presentations all the time, but the camera, I just froze up, felt totally uncomfortable. I was like, what's the way to get me comfortable? It is talking about my favorite hobby, that's comic books. So I started a YouTube channel on comic books just to get comfortable in front of the camera. And I'm really glad I did. And, in addition to being okay in front of the camera, I've met a lot of good people in the comic book community here on YouTube.
That's to me is like the best thing. Like just doing YouTube, and I've been doing it for like almost 5 years now. It's just all the people that I've met that I didn't know existed and love the hobby as much as we do. Like that to me has been the best part of it. It is work sometimes, and especially watching your videos. I know you put the highest of quality into your stuff, and you do a lot of video motions and stuff like that, same that I do. So it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is, and you get a little bit better, a little bit faster over time. I watched some YouTube videos about how to create better YouTube videos. Lawrence, I'm guessing you do too. And
Yep.
they say often is like the first sort of 10 to 20 videos you put out, just they're going to be bad, but you just got
Yep.
to do it just to get that practice, the reps in. And then once you get comfortable doing it, then you're a little bit more of yourself on camera. So that's kind of what I'd found.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look at some of my earliest videos, they're just terrible. Oh my god! But it's funny because a buddy of mine, Danny, who's in the chat today, he went back and he watched some of my earliest stuff. He's like, "Oh, I can't believe all the books you unboxed." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, man." It's when I was like in the heat of collecting. I was buying most of my collection that I have now, so it was like you see some amazing stuff that you don't always see. So it's another reason why I wanted you have you on the channel because I know you have one of the best collections that I've seen from the YouTube community. So we're gonna get into that today as well. But how did you get how long you been collecting comics and did you take a break? Did you come back?
Yeah, my story is like a lot of folks are probably listening right now. So as a kid, I collected a lot. I would save up my lunch money, wouldn't eat lunch to buy a few comic books. And this was in the mid 80s through the early 90s when I was buying, 4 or 5 books per week. And then when I went to college, I slowed down a lot. And then it was about 11 years ago when a buddy of mine, a serious coin collector, got me thinking about collectibles again and I like coins. But he taught me all these like strategies about collecting, and I was able to apply them to comic books. And then as soon as I got my first like big comic book in, I bought a copy of Amazing Spider-Man #1, which was a 3.5. It's a book I've been dreaming about since I was a kid. I had that in my hands, and like everything in the pleasure center of my head was just tingling. I was like, I've got to recapture that high. And so after that point, I kept going after comic books.
Yeah, I mean, we have a similar story because when you mentioned that book, like that was the first book when I was a kid. I had to be like 8 or 9 years old. I went to, it wasn't an LCS, but it was a comic shop, and on that wall was an Amazing Spider-Man 1, and I was hooked ever since that moment. Just that book did it alone.
Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't know about Amazing Fantasy 15. I just knew
Me
that
neither.
Amazing Spider-Man was the series that I enjoyed. It was so great, and I thought, can I get the first book in that series? And it wasn't until, gosh, maybe it was 11 years ago when I got serious back into collecting that I realized, okay, AF 15 has sort of outpaced it as being a great book, but ASM 1 has a special place in my heart.
So let me ask you this. Right now, where you are in your collection, do you still buy books or are you just kind of like you buy like every so often when you see something you really, really want?
Yeah, I still buy books. You mean like books that just came out, or you mean like
No, no, I'm not talking about moderns. I'm talking about, golden, silver, bronze, that stuff.
yeah, every time I can free up a little bit of money, I certainly do. And I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but in terms of like what type of collector am I make money to buy comic books, not the other way around.
Yeah. I gotcha. Totally understand. And there's a lot of people right now in our community who buy to resell to buy other stuff. So I mean, totally understand that one. Um, so right now, like, have you always been? I know you have a huge golden age collection. Is that your favorite genre?
Yeah, for sure. So, back 11, 10 years ago, it was silver. And so I was trying to just get all the silver books that I could. And those were the books that I really dreamed about as a kid. And what I found out was that, I mean, they're not easy to get and they're pretty expensive, but 10 years ago, they weren't nearly as expensive as they are now. And so I was able to get most of those grails. And then what I realized is that if you have a little bit of money, that you can always get those silver age books. And as I started getting into gold, I realized, geez, this is really hard. And half of the joy in golden age collecting is the hunt, because you have a book, it might be an auction, and you're going at it with somebody else. And if you lose that book, it may be 3, 5 years or even more before you get another shot at the book. And so that's what excites me. Maybe I'm uh, uh, a martyr a little bit. It's just like, hey, I'll just kind of go after it and see what happens. But it's painful, and it's also a lot of joy.
Yeah, so you went through something that I kind of going through right now.
Okay.
So it's a great thing you just mentioned about silver, and I'm gonna throw Bronze Age there because I have a lot of buddies right now in the community who are looking to add like their first big bronze keys. Like a couple of guys bought Hulk 181s. It was the first time buying a big book, but I have conversations with other people about, well, you can always go out and get a Bronze Age book because there's so many copies out there. And now you brought up the fact that there are you could always go out and get a Silver Age book too, and that is the truth because there are thousands and thousands of copies on the census for these books. But the
Yeah.
golden age of comic books, they're so rare. Is that what has attracted you? The rarity, or more character based, or you tell me.
Yeah, I think it's both rarity and so it's a challenge to get individual books. And it's also, I think Golden Age can be intimidating too. So I stayed away from it at first because just so much knowledge out there that you have to learn about Golden Age. But when you do, and you kind of like unlock that territory, like if it's a video game, it's like an area you just can't see. But if you do enough research, it sort of opens up to you. And then there are it's like so many different paths that you can go by. So my buddy who taught me about coins gave me a great suggestion. He said that with coins, unless you're a dealer and you're super smart and you focus on coins all the time, you are not going to be an expert on everything. And even if you were that dealer, you're still probably not going to be an expert in everything because coins are so vast. And I say the same thing about Golden Age. Like you just can't be an expert on all the Golden Age titles. I mean, there's hundreds of different titles and dozens, hundreds of books in each title, and so over time I found the areas that I really like, and so I don't consider myself a Golden Age expert per se, but there are a couple of niches within Golden Age that I feel like I know a lot about.
Okay. So I see you with the Chamber of Chill shirt on. So I got to ask, is pre-code horror your favorite, or you are more of a superhero? But I know the Golden Age has a ton of different things. Like they have the beautiful lady covers. They have a ton of different things, to be attracted to. So what's your favorite Golden Age stuff?
Yeah, so a few areas I like. I do like pre-code horror, but it's not my favorite. I'll actually show a really nice pre-code horror book today. I do like. I would say they're like second tier superhero books too, from the Golden Age. And with the Golden Age, if you go like first tier superhero, it's just so freaking expensive.
It is that it is. I know you have one big tier, huge tier comic book that I've seen in your collection. So I don't know if you
Yeah,
bought that one today, but
I do. Yeah, I've got one. But it's like I could probably sell most of my books and get like a really nice one, a copy of All American 16, which is a first Green
yeah,
Lantern or something like that. But they're pretty cost prohibitive. But if you go down to that like second layer, so we're talking about many of these books I don't have, but like the first appearance of the Spectre, or first appearance of Golden Age Sandman, and even like Wonder Woman, she's sort of midway between the top level character and a second level character. Those aren't too bad. Like you can get into those books for about the same amount of money you might get into a Hulk 1 or Amazing Fantasy 15. I mean, still expensive, but they're not like Action 1 that you can't even touch that book for, I don't know, under 150,000 or $200,000
yeah,
these days.
yeah.
It's just almost untouchable.
So let me ask you this: as a big Golden Age collector, does grade matter when you're collecting Golden Age?
This is really interesting. My friends Hazel Dan might be on here too. I would say it matters less. Like if it's a choice between no book and a book, like I'll take a restored book or a low grade copy. To me, having like some eye appeal is important though. So if there's a book and it's got half a page torn off of the front and you can't
Yeah.
even see the main character, then that'll be a no for me. But like a nice restored copy that you can get for about the price of a 1.0 unrestored, I'm okay with that.
So would you rather have that restored, nicer looking copy, or that Blue Label 1.0 that has everything and it's complete and there's no, color touch or anything like that?
Yeah, it's funny, Lawrence. I am in the process of making a video just on that topic because some people just hate Purple Label.
I know.
Like Sticky Goose, who I really enjoy watching his videos. He says something like, "Purple Label is worthless." Like that's the
Yeah.
title of his video, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, the thing is for Golden Age is that there are many of those books that actually have more Purple Label books than
Yep.
they do Blue Label.
Mm.
And so Hazel Dan, they got this great copy of More Fun 52, first appearance of the Spectre. And I looked at it. There are I think just under 50 copies total, and over half of them are purple label. So what you're going to be looking at if you have, you know, $30,000-$40,000 range, which is the entry point into it, is like there are, I think, 6 or 7 copies between a 0.5 and a 1.8. And then you have 20 purple label books. So it's like, if you're trying to get a blue label, you got an option of 7 at that price point, right?
Yeah.
Versus you got 20 purple label books that'll be roughly in that same path. I mean, even still, even just any copy of that book, you might have a shot at it once per year. And so for that reason, I'm like, I think a purple label, More Fun 52 or something similar in that range is just an absolutely mic drop of a book. People disagree with me all the time, but yeah.
No, I agree with you. And I always say, and I'm going to ask you your feelings on this, is that I think when we talk about Golden Age, because of the rarity, because of what you just said, you're not going to find many, unrestored, books that are complete that in this genre and in this age, that it's okay to collect purple labels and restored books from the Golden Age because of the rarity of it. So brings me to my next question is, what about Silver Age? You feel that that same thing applies to Silver Age, or no? Silver Age, you kind of want to stick to the non, you know, restored books.
Yeah, I'm a little harder on Silver Age just because it's more common. At the same time, I realize, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, how expensive some of these books have gotten. And so, kind of the same thing applies. If you're looking at, you got $15,000 or $20,000 and you're thinking about, gosh, I want to get into the Amazing Fantasy 15 game, a 1.0 blue label, some might look good, but most of them don't. And to me, it's no shame in getting a 8.0 purple label in that case. But here's the thing too, Lawrence, that I think gets glossed over sometimes is that there are different shades of purple. And
I was just, that was my next question. So you're leading right into it, which is perfect.
So yeah, that is, you could have a book that was basically had a chemical wash, and that was it. So it's clean chemically. Nothing else was done. No pieces added. There was no color touch to it. And so in that case, that purple label book should be if it was, say, an 8.0 originally, then had this wash and got up to like a 9.0, that book should be valued more than a low grade blue label book. But there's a lot of nuance there, and it's really tough to price these books. But again, it's like, what I think is that if you're looking at that 1.0 blue label price range, and then you're going off and you're looking at purple label books, I think that's a pretty fair exchange. If you're going to, say, pay like 3.0 or 3.5 blue label money for a purple label book, you better be real careful. And to me, that book should have like slight restoration. And some people will actually look at books with slight resto, and if it's been done professionally, sometimes it can be removed and it can be converted to a blue label book as well. But yeah, I'm not like a super huge purple label fan, meaning it bugs me a little bit to have a copy. But there are some situations where, would I rather have a really nasty looking blue label book or a book that I can look at, it looks good as a purple label? I'll take the purple label book.
And presentation is always the name of the game in anything you buy, really, because you could buy like, a book that looks like, and I'll give you a point. You guys know, if you watch my channel, I have an Amazing Spider-Man 1. It looks like a 5.0. It's a 0.5 blue label because it's missing the back cover, but and I'm not a huge fan of incomplete books. That's the next question I'm going to ask you, but there's also many levels to restoration. There's color touch, there's trimming, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I personally like to stay away from trimming if I'm buying a restored book, and I'm only going to buy them in the Golden Age books. But what is your opinion on incomplete books? And I'll throw it to trimming as well for Golden Age books, not for silver, but trimming for Golden Age and any type of missing pieces for Golden Age books.
Yeah, that's so tough. Well, Lawrence, I like where you're going with your ASM number 1. Like, to me, if you're thinking about the cover, it's 90% front cover.
Yeah, it is.
Like, I wouldn't want that the other way around. Like, it's really important for me to have at least most of what was the original front cover. Missing pages in the middle, that doesn't bother me too much. But again, I'm not going to pay blue label money for it. What's interesting to me, I know this is also a controversial topic, is that idea of that green or qualified label. And again, there's shades of green too. So sometimes it's just like a little coupon is cut out and it might interrupt the main story just a little bit. And other times, I saw this book recently, Lawrence, and it was actually, I think it was an AF-15 that came up for auction, and it was green label 6.0. It had two center wraps missing. Two. And I was like, that's a lot of a book to be missing. And,
Yep.
I understand that's why it's qualified, because it's like, it's too nice. It looks too nice on the outside to call it a 0.5. At the same time, they're like, hey, it looks everywhere else looks like a 6.0, but we have to let you know that there's 2 pages missing. How the hell do you price that?
Yeah, it's tough. That's why for me, if you're gonna spend that much money, I always tell people like I'd rather have, and we're talking about the silver age or bronze or anything,
Yeah,
past that, I'd rather have a blue label just to have a complete copy. But I understand finances get in the way, can't always spend that kind of money. So you have to pick your poison. So if you can't do that, I mean, I'd rather have a complete book in that instance and have it color touch or something like that where it's not missing anything. I think when you're missing part of, like you said, the story or a big, giant chunk is come out of the cover, like it's almost like I think down the road you may have an issue with holding that book for yourself, and you may say, "I want a better copy."
sure.
So I know you brought some books today, so I wanted everybody out there in the community who watches my channel to kind of see some of the crazy stuff that you have, some awesome stuff. So whatever you have, bring it out and talk a little bit about each book. Why you bought it, stuff like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Lawrence, I'll give maybe a little 30-second pitch for each one. And if you
Perfect.
want to stop me, please do so.
No
But
problem.
yeah, I took a mix of silver and gold, and some of these I think are good values, and some of them are like really big books. Um, so of course we got the old, Fantastic 452 over here, the first Black Panther. And to me, this is actually one of the better deals. I mean, I know it went up a lot since the movie, but you can still get a decent presenting copy in the hundreds of dollars, and
Yep.
it's a character that everybody knows. So I like this book. And by the way, it is missing like a page in there, so it's actually a 0.5. So I got that one pretty cheap. So there you go.
That's a
Um,
book that's really come down. So if you're a Black
yeah.
Panther fan and it's a great Silver Age book because before that movie came out, you could have had that book for under $100 in like mid grade. Now it's kind of gotten a lot more expensive, but still very, very affordable.
Yeah, and the question I ask about Silver Age books is like, what percentage of people who aren't into comic books know that character? And
Yeah.
Black Panther is one of those that's like, before the movies came out, was just under the radar. So still a lot of folks in comic book collecting knew of Black Panther, but the movie, especially the first one, was just outstanding. And to me, I'm like, I see people coming back to that book over time, so I would suggest getting a copy. And that's the only one I own. I need to get a better copy, but yeah, I really like that book.
So before you show your next book, everyone who's out there in the chat right now or watching this video, do me a favor, drop me comments in the chat of any questions you have for Keston going forward, because we're going to address some of them as well as we go forward in the video. Sorry, Keston, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you've been talking about all these nice books that I have, so I didn't want to be too slow in showing
Oh,
some of them. So this is a Silver Age book, but it's my copy of Amazing Fantasy number 15. And this is a 3.5 copy. And one of the reasons I like it is because it doesn't have the Marvel chipping on the
yeah.
side, which is really pretty common. And one of my sweet spots actually is books in the 3 to 3.5 area, especially for Silver Age, because I know a few channels have talked about this. But if you look like 6 years ago, even, it was a very linear relationship between grade and price. And so if at one time, say AF-15 was $10,000 a point, this like 1 is 10,000, 1.5, 15,000, 2 is 20,000, up till you get to about a 6, and then it starts going up higher. What had happened recently is there was like all these people just wanted to get into the AF-15 book. And so books that were 0.5 or 1.0 were selling just a little bit less than 3.5s. So to
Yep.
me, I'm like, I would rather pay that, 30, 50% more to get into, something that's kind of on the low end of mid grade.
It is beautiful. It looks better than the 3.5 from here, but I can't see, that close from because I'm whatever, but it looks beautiful. With the fact that when we talk about AF-15, you guys know that that's my book. I love Spider-Man, but when we talk about AF-15, it's all about presentation. And to have a
Yeah.
copy with no chipping, it's also, I see an older CGC label where they're a lot harsher. You never know. That could be
Yeah.
higher.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. It does have some flaws to it. It might be able to say press up to a 4.0, but the flaws in it are kind of subtle and hidden, which
Yeah.
is nice. So there's nothing you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, it appears like more of like a mid-grade book at first blush.
It looks like the colors pop on the Spider-Man too. That's the one thing I noticed. Like about that
Yeah.
book is it's like gray and brown, and the yellows are popping, the red is popping. That's
Yeah.
the one thing I always look for in that book. It's beautiful.
Thank you. All right. Well, now we'll go. This is like barely into the golden age. So the golden age started in 1956 with showcase number 4, first Flash. And I always think this is an interesting book. It's from 1952, and this is Mad number 1. So I don't know if you've showed this on your channel before or not, Lawrence. But
I have
super
not, but
interesting. Yeah. Interesting story because Mad first came out as a comic book, and this is in 52, and then soon after the comic book code authority came in, and they were like, the type of humor in Mad just wouldn't work with the authorities. So their strategy from EC was to just change it to a magazine.
yeah,
And apparently they didn't have the same rules for magazines as comic books. But yeah, it's kind of an interesting book.
that's when I was a kid, I used to love Mad. I know obviously it was totally different when I was a kid as opposed to being in the golden age, but still it was just I used to love the magazine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super fun. Next book I have, you were asking like some areas that I like. Pre-code a bit, these early superheroes, some too. My favorite genre is good girl art, actually. And good girl art, like you want to have like obviously a good girl, and you also want to have a great villain on the cover. And some of these books are just outrageously expensive, and this is one that I enjoy because I think it's a good value pick. So you can still have this book in mid grade for say $300 or $400. And the book is this one. It's Super Magician, Volume 4, number 5. And so you got this like hooded dude who is he's got a gun pointed at the girl, and then you have the super magician over here trying to fight him off. And so for those golden age fans, one of the biggest books out there is Suspense Comics number 3, and that's where they've got these like hooded dudes who are about ready to sacrifice this lady, and it's this classic Alex Schomburg cover. I actually own a copy of that. I'm not going to show it today, but this is like the poor man's version of that, and you can get it for a few $100s, and it's kind of cool. And I tell you, you don't see this book pop up very much, but it's really fun.
Very cool. Something I've never seen before, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to have you on the channel, because a lot of the stuff I think you'll show I probably have never seen before. So, and the channel people who watch my channel probably haven't seen it before.
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this is a fun book. Okay, and now we're getting a little bit more. We'll actually show this one because we have been talking about pre-code horror, and this one's one of my favorites. And so this is Chamber of Chills number 19, and this one is from, I think it's 1953. So it's right before the code came out, and I like it because it's like a classy horror cover. So it's a Lee Elias cover art, and you have a skeleton who is posing a toast to this lady, and through the glass you can see her skeleton. I just think that's a really cool concept.
To me, I think that's the best. It's the best pre-code horror cover there is. Black Cat Mystery 50 is probably number 2, and Tomb of Terror 15 is probably 3 in my opinion. But that is the best, just because of what it implies.
Oh yeah, and also that cigarette, like something about it, and it's the time, right? I mean, people are smoking all the time. But it's just like, yeah, this classy lady smoking, and he's like, "Hey, toast to you."
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a favorite of mine.
So I know you brought 10, so that was 4. Do one more, and then we'll do a couple questions, and then we'll get back into the other 5.
Sure. Let's see. Actually, this is probably a good place to stop because I've got the next 4 kind of run together.
All right, so we'll do a couple more questions, and then we'll get back into the books. But so right now, is there anything specific you're looking for to buy?
that I'm willing to reveal.
Okay. So if it's like, I mean, is a reason you're not revealing because you don't want anybody to know you're going after? Or you're going to do like a video on it?
Well, actually, it's because like some of the books I'm going after are so rare. It's like if somebody knows I'm going after it, then they could get
They
that
could
book
snatch it up. I got you. All right.
and
So
they know I'm an addict, and they're like, that guy, we could ask him for anything. So I got to go a little bit under the radar
to,
to get it.
to,
But in general, what I can tell you is that I really like World War II covers from Alex Schomburg, famous artist in the Golden Age, and he does so many great books in Marvel Mystery and Submariner and Human Torch. So that's kind of in the broad view. That, and I'm a classic cover person. I used to love first appearances. I mean, still like them, but the kind of longer I'm in the hobby, I just try to look at covers that dazzle my eye, and especially these books that I see it a time or two, and they're like, that's pretty cool. And then I keep thinking about it, and those are the kinds of books that usually stay in my collection for a long time.
So like you obviously you're in our community and you know about the market right now, how things have kind of, I don't want to say crashed over the past year and a half, but is there something where how are your feelings about the crash and where the market is today? And is there anything you kind of stay away from right now and not be buying?
Yeah. Well, I think like a lot of us out here, we want the market to be healthy and to go up because most of us have a lot of money invested in comic books. And like to me, a lot of the books I have, I mean, I want them to be worth a bit, but they're whenever I die, it's whoever my heir is going to get the money benefit from it. Um, but all that said, one thing that really concerned me, just because, Lawrence, you and I have been around for a little while, and anytime you see something getting too hot, it's like cause for concern. It's not like, hey, let's celebrate. I mean, I remember in 1999, I had a bunch of kind of younger friends. I was young then too, and they were like, hey, Feds, like keep the interest rate down. Let's keep this thing moving,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, the market's gone up, whatever it was. The NASDAQ was up 120% in 2 years. I'm like, that's not good
Yeah.
because overall things are going to even out. And so there's going to be a, big fall. So I think maybe I would rephrase the question being like, as opposed to like, why are some comic books down? It's more like, well, why are comic books were so hot in those couple years? I know a few folks have been talking about this idea of almost ignore those 2 years and go back to like maybe mid 2020 and say, kind of reconnect today's prices to that. And it doesn't look so unreasonable. Kind of a point like, what am I afraid of, or my take on the market? I think that books that have a lot of copies out there, and so you're talking about like bronze and forward. There were a lot of people who were really pumping these particular copies. They're like, hey, this book is going to be worth a whole lot. And I'm thinking, okay, well, it might have 3,000 on census, but for every book on census, there's probably, 30 other copies. And if that's the case, then these books come out of the woodwork and it's like, well, how many people actually wanted this book versus how many wanted to flip it?
Yeah.
The anchor to the market is actually people who care and love about these books. And you could do an analogy to housing. It's like, well, house prices should roughly be related to the people who actually want to buy a house. But when you get all these speculators in the housing market trying to flip them, and then it's this, well, what does the price of that home mean? And same thing with comic books. It's like, well, I want to get this book and sell it to the next dummy who's willing to pay for more money than I am. So, another reason that I've been into Golden Age is because there tends to be less fluctuation in those books in the long run. And you tend not to see like a super spike. And at the same time, the books don't, come down a lot. On the flip side of that, kind of negative about Golden Age is that there are, very few books, but there is also a very small niche of people going after those books. So sometimes it could be the case where just not enough people come to market, or there's 10 people total who might be interested in that book, and only 3 of them show up to the auction this time. And so the book sells 20% less than you think it does. not necessarily as a reflection of the market, but just a reflection of the luck of the draw. So you have a lot more variability in price that way.
And that's why I wanted to have you on the channel, just because of um I don't want to say expertise, because we all have things that we don't know about certain ages, especially me when it comes to that golden age. But you get different point of views for people who collect different things, and I wanted people on my channel to at least have, you know, get some information from somebody who does it, what they do and how they handle certain things. I'm glad you said that, because you know, a lot of people, unfortunately, and that's why I said at the beginning of this video, I have a video coming out Tuesday about beware, what kind of collector are you? Really watch that video, because what I talk about is about, all of us, if you have a connection to a character, then it doesn't matter. And I think that's what kind of Keston is saying. If you, when the market came down, those people weren't buying it because they love the character. They're buying it because they want to flip it and make money. So just know that and watch that video, and you kind of understand what I'm saying. But okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And
well,
Lawrence, to be fair too, I think it's fine if people want to make money in comic books. So I'm not trying to knock on
yeah,
anybody who wants to
no,
flip. Like that's completely fine. But as maybe to your point about what kind of collector you are, it's like, well, if you want to be successful at that type of collecting and selling and wheeling and dealing, then you have to be faster than other people, and you have to have knowledge before other people do. If you are listening to somebody else promote a book about how hot it is, then you've probably already lost out. It's that old notion. It's like buy on the rumor, sell on the news.
yeah, yeah. So I have another good question for you, and I was really came prepared today, because I knew that I wanted some good some questions for you. So you have a very large collection. How many books would you think you have in your collection? You think?
Gosh, yeah, it's probably 1,200, 1,500. Half of those are from when I was a kid because I
Mhm.
collected so many books, and then half are later. Although, if folks from your channel might be familiar with Comic Collector Geek,
Yes. I was
he
on his channel a while back.
that's right. Yeah, I remember seeing that interview. Um, like he and I probably our collections, I would say, are probably worth about the same amount, but the difference is that his is more like spread out the value across his books. For me, my top 8 or 10 books are probably 80% of my value. So I've got like a lot of really big books that sort of lead the charge in my collection.
So that brings me to the next question. You ever thought about, and I'm going through this now because
Yeah.
I'm consolidating like and I never had a massive collection, but I always had like a decent amount of books. I'm consolidating into my favorite things that I want to collect and into like bigger books. Have you ever thought about consolidating your collection into a few big, huge keys?
Yeah. It, so Lawrence, how long have you seriously been collecting comic books? Kind of
Well,
high
since
end?
I was a kid, high end, when I in 2017 when I got back into it.
Okay, 2017. So you've been on YouTube quite a bit longer. I've been collecting like high end books since about 2012. So I'm a little bit longer on that end. So the kind of the evolution that I went through at first was like I was just trying to kind of feel like to see what I liked. I knew I liked the Marvel superheroes, and I also was just kind of I just went out for a lot of other books too. And some of the books I didn't really like. I just got a good deal on them. And then as I have kind of gotten older, I got into Golden Age, and then also really thought about the books that I liked and loved. Kind of on the something another lesson that I learned one time is I was just kind of playing around, putting bids on books, and I got a really big book that I didn't like so much, and then I had to sell some of the books I really cared about for that book, and the pain, Lawrence, was incredible. I was like, I never want to have that happen again. And so what I try to do is to say, hey, these are just books that I just can't put myself at risk for having to let them go.
Yeah.
Um, so did I answer your question, by the way?
You did, because um, you know, it's all about it goes back to the same old thing. Like, you got to buy what you love. And if like you just said, if you're buying something that it's a big book, that it's not like you don't have that great attraction to it, and you have to give up something that you are,
Yeah.
crazy about, it's not worth it. So for me, like, that's why I'm on the opposite end, where I've kind of consolidating into the books now that you said you've already done that. I only want to, because I have such attachment to Spider-Man, the Hulk, Batman, that those are the really everything that I want to keep in my collection. So you did, but you did it earlier than I did it.
Yeah, and I mean, I would suggest going that route. If you have books in your collection, you've got a pretty big collection, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot I had that. Well, if you're saying I forgot I had that, then you could probably let that go. Um, and also, I just think about, again, if I had to trade these books for this book, would it be worth it? And because I hate giving up books, I mean, hate it. But there's a handful of books I'd say, yep, I would do it. I would do it.
So I'm not going to ask you what they are, because in case you want to go after them, I don't want anyone else, I don't blocking you from getting them. But we're going to do one more question because it's from the audience. So
Yeah.
guys, if you have other questions, ask them, and then we're going to get back into your other books. Okay. So Dr. Sean, who says, what do you guys think about the longer term, like 25-year plus health of the comic market? Most collectors are in their 40s and 50s. Do you think comics will end up like stamps in the long run? I'll let you go at it.
Okay, Lawrence, I hope you follow me too, because I'd love to hear your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, I will. I will. You go
Yeah,
first,
Dr.
though.
Sean, thanks for the great question. Yeah. So there's a couple pieces here. So one is like, in 25 or 30 years from now, will people care about superheroes? Because I do think the superheroes is sort of the piece of the comic book collecting community that keeps everybody together. Everything else is kind of in the orbits around it. Will people care in 25 years? Of course. And I say that because if you go to whatever the latest Spider-Man movie is, and you'll see a 5-year-old kid, what the 5-year-old kid doing? He's making the Spider-Man sign. And so that to me is like, okay, way to go, Marvel. You hooked another one in their brain, and they're going to be on board for a number of years. But that's a little different than, are they going to be interested in comic books, right? Because they're interested in comic book heroes. Are they interested in comic books? I mean, I'm going to say I think so. I'm concerned about the generation after that. And I mean, why I think so is that, and this kind of goes back to like what comic books are worth a lot of money. They're the ones that can be passed on from generation to generation. So like a Superman or a Batman, it's 1938 and 1939 respectively, and they keep getting noticed like over time. And Amazing Fantasy 15 is like one generation less than that. And I think the Marvel movies definitely inspired the generation before. And I'm just going to keep my fingers crossed and think that next sleep, 50 years from now, that's the one that I have a bigger question about. I don't know. Will it be stamps? God, I hope not. Because you're right. Stamps are popular so long. And then the last, gosh, probably in our lifetimes, probably the last 30 years, they've been dwindling down. So I'm going to say yes to 25 and say 25 years from now, 50 years, I'm not sure. How about you, Lawrence?
I'm with you. The one thing, and I don't know anything about stamps, I'm going to tell you that right now, but like they don't put movies out about stamps. They don't put, comic books about stamps. They don't, so where the people that are constantly collecting stamps, everyone else kind of forgets about them, I would think. But like, as long as they're putting out comics, as long as they're putting out movies, shows, and there are things surrounding these characters, and not just that, they have Comic-Cons every year. As long as those things are happening, I can't see comics dying. However, there's a big caveat to this, and like, there are readers out there and there are collectors out there. So if you read comics, I don't know where that part of the business is going to go. However, if you're a collector of history, and that's to me what comics are, it's history, whereas gold, silver, and I'm going to throw bronze in there, even a little bit of copper. Like the people growing up now, like my age, they grew up with copper comic books. People like my dad's age, they grew up with silver age comic books and maybe a little bit of golden age, but that's a part of history. And I can't see the people who like the characters not wanting to know where the history of those characters came from. And it's in the pages of these comic books. So I don't know if it'll ever be as popular as it is now. However, I don't think it's going anywhere. And I hope that answers the question. All right. So let's take a look at the rest of those books. I'm excited to see what you brought.
Yeah, thanks, Lawrence. I got to tell you made me laugh thinking about like this great blockbuster stamp movie.
Yeah.
It's like Upside Down Jenny back again. Okay, that's for all you stamp people. Okay, so I will talk about kind of my favorite subgenre, and it is good girl art, but it's airbrushed good girl art by my favorite artist, Alex Schomburg. And this is one example here. This is Wonder Comics number 15. And this was out in, I believe it was 1947. Yep, end of 1947. And the they're called airbrush because that was the style on the cover. And Schomburg was the first to introduce this. They're always super busy and they're fun. And these aren't too incredibly expensive. So there's 37 different issues from 4 different series that are in this Schomburg airbrush subgenre. And like here, you have this woman who is underneath a microscope. This giant has got a scalpel, and then the hero is back here trying to save her. So they're really vibrant. They're fun, and again, not so expensive. You can get most of these in mid-grade for a few $100s. This one's a little bit more. This is probably like, this is high mid-grade at 5.5. This is probably like $3,000 for this book. And I'll give you another example of one of these. And this is Thrilling Comic 63, actually from the same month. And it's just a beautiful cover, super vibrant. And this is actually a 9.6. This is the single highest graded copy of this book. And so for those of you all who know about pedigrees, the Mile High is a 9.4 and the Promise Collection is a 9.4. And this one stands alone at the top. And gosh, Golden Age high grade is really, really tough to get. And I actually got a decent deal on this. I think I got it for $4,000. And like, to me, that's a bargain because, like 7 sell for about $1,000 these days. And, for a book that's known for its cover, if you're having a book that has very little wear and tear to it, and vibrant, get that if you can. So that's one of my favorites.
Someone's asking me to zoom in, but I don't know how to zoom in on the book. I apologize ahead of time to everyone out there.
Let me see if I can give a little bit better look on it. And also, if you wanted to see this book, if you go on to Heritage Auctions and you look at Thrilling Comics number 63, I got it from there, and you can see it's only 9.6 copies. So if you want to take a closer look, you can. Oh, there you go.
There you go. I figured it out.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And it's off-white white pages, so pretty good page quality too. All right, you ready for the next one?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to Silver Age, and you'll know why in a minute. This is Showcase number 60. So this is the first Silver Age Spectre, and this is actually one of the better deals in my mind for Silver Age books. For mid-grade, you can get this for $200 or $300, so it's not too bad. And I think it came out in 1963, but for whatever reason, the old Spectre doesn't get too much love, but he's one of my favorite Golden Age characters, and I like this one as well. So why am I bringing up this one? Because I'm showing this one off.
Oh my God.
More Fun 54. And this is one of the best Golden Age covers. Most people have this in their top 10. Just a beautiful copy. So Spectre's first appearance was in 52. So this is only 2 issues later. And this copy to me, More Fun 54, is to Spectre as Detective Comics number 31 is to Batman. And that's that famous castle cover. This is just amazing copy. This is from the Nova Scotia pedigree. And this is also unusual in this grade. This is a 9.0. And there are only 2 copies higher, both at 9.2. I think it's the Mile High and Larson copy are 9.2s. And then there's 2 in 9.0, including this one. I think this is the best high grade superhero book that I have.
That's unbelievable. So you talk about Tech 31, and to me, that's one of my favorite covers of all time. And that is, and to have that in a 9.0 though is, I couldn't even imagine. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, Lawrence, because I traded, and they gave me a little bit money too for this, but I traded a Tech 31 that was 2.5 slightly brittle pages for this More Fun 54. And it was one of those things to me that I love Tech 31, but the particular book didn't feel good in my hands. And when I got this book, I was just like, I got to have it. So, but that lets you know how expensive Tech 31 is too.
It is. It's I've been watching it, and
Yeah.
it's this one guy on eBay who has a 1.0 that's $80,000. So I mean, it's super rare.
Yeah. And interestingly, too, with this book, Comic Connect had it for a long time, and it was on their buy it now list. And like through, gosh, let's say they had it on market from like 2016 to like 2020, and all these other books were selling and moving up in value, and it just kept sitting there for $40,000. And I was like, I got to get it. I mean, it's just too good. And Spectre was just like flat for a long
Yeah.
time. Like nobody wanted Spectre. And to me, I'm like, Spectre is one of the coolest golden age books. And, fortunately, it's starting to go up quite a bit now. So my timing was pretty good on it.
It's amazing. I mean, would you happen to know just that book alone how many would be on the census? I would think it's under 100.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's in the 40s, like maybe
Yeah.
45, something like that. Yeah, it's not an easy book to get.
And the third highest grade, which is tremendous.
Yeah, the third highest grade. And to me too, it's like sometimes golden age books, because there's so many manufacturing defects that aren't CGC doesn't knock it off too bad for the manufacturing defects, that sometimes a 9.0 may not look so great compared to like Silver Age 9.0s. This is an example of a book that really presents well for the grade. And so, yeah, I'm super happy to have it. It's one where, I hold it and my heart just warms up every time that I get it. And yeah, I don't know what it would take to, get me away from that book. It's not money. It would have to be
Yeah.
some kind of crazy book. I'll tell you, like a book I'm looking for, which people wouldn't trade me for this because it's too expensive. But like, I've always wanted a Marvel Comics #1. That's been kind of my grail. But gosh, and Lawrence, I had an opportunity to get a copy like a few years ago. They weren't so expensive, but then they just been shooting up now. Yeah.
That's crazy. So Robert says there's 30. He must have looked it up. There's 32 graded on the census, 2 at a 9.0 only.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. Crazy.
So
Is that it, or is there
that's my
more?
big book for you.
That's my big. All right, look, that was enough. That was incredible. So, there was another question by somebody. I'm gonna go back
Sure.
and read it. What are your top undervalued golden age comics, or the genre of comic or specific book that seems undervalued after the recent downturn? But let's try to stick to golden age, because that's where I think is there an undervalued key from the golden age that you think is worth mentioning?
Yeah, there's some. I can't remember the exact number, but it's Adventure Comics, and it's the first appearance of Our Man.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so Dragon Age Comics, Jamie over there keeps loving that book, and it's starting to grow on me. I think that the cover's not that great, but you can get, a first appearance of a golden age person who was on that uh, first superhero team is escaping me right now. But anyway, yeah, a pretty famous character. So I think that's a pretty decent deal. I also like well, here's one where I would like to have a copy of this too, but Adventure Comics 40, the first Sandman. I mean, the Sandman, the Golden Age Sandman, if y'all don't know, look it up. Adventure Comics #40. One of the coolest characters. It's like, steampunk before there was steampunk almost. And so it's like this character wearing this gas mask, and like always wears a suit with the gas mask. It's kind of a strange, bizarre look, but it works. And yeah, I mean, you can get a copy of that book for about the same amount as you could for an AF-15. And that book is, I mean, super
right.
rare
Yeah.
too. So you're looking at like, 40 copies or so for that book. So I like that. And I think that, I mean, you have to ask yourself whether you enjoy these, but like the airbrush covers that I was showing. So these, they got to me. Something about them just resonated with me more than anything else. So I've got a complete set of all these books, and for many of them, multiple copies of them, just because I like them. So anytime you can find some comic books that golden age that many or if you start learning about the golden age and you start learning about what people like and they know, and you find out some books are in the hundreds of dollars, buy those books. I'll give you a few examples there. Fiction House has a bunch of books that are really cool covers. And so they're like Planet Comics, Fight Comics, Ranger Comics. write those down and take a look at those covers. And I'm guessing you're going to like them because they're really fun and good. And they're, again, a couple layers lower than the big books out there. But as people start getting into the golden age, they tend to go to those too. I would say those are good deals. We talked about pre-code horror. Pre-code horror used to be a great deal. But they have gone up a lot. So I'm not sure I could recommend too many of those books. I mean, the Chamber of Chills 19, the one with the skeleton toasting the lady, I think I got my book in like 2015 for, I think it was $1,100 for my 3.0.
Oh, wow.
And that book for 3.0 is only like 10 grand now. So
yeah, I was going to say, it's at least 5 figures.
Yeah. So, again, so when something has gone up tenfold in less than 10 years, I get a little bit concerned that it might be a little overheated. I mean, I hate to talk down one of the books I own, but I just think that area has been a little too hot right now.
So let me ask you a question. Is that your favorite book, the more fun in your collection? Or do you have a favorite book if it's not?
So there's kind of two favorites. So the favorite book I own is this copy of Amazing Spider-Man #1. That's a 3.5. I like that just because it was the book that got me into serious collecting. I mean, my visceral reaction to opening it up just told me I needed to pursue this to be fulfilled in life. I mean, it does sound corny, but that's the way I felt about it. My book that I'm probably most proud of is Suspense Comics #3. I've got a really nice copy of that. And that book, many people consider it to be the most valuable non-superhero comic book that there is. And it's just an unbelievable cover. And it's also ultra rare. And I ended up getting my copy right before it really spiked up. And so it's the best known cover of my favorite artist, Alex Schomburg. And yeah, that one's like, there's no way I could replace it.
So see what he just described when he opened that Amazing Spider-Man 1. If you opened your favorite comic, the time that you got your favorite comic, if you don't have that feeling, then something is wrong, right? If you're working to get there, then that's great. I think that's awesome. But and that's really what this video is about Tuesday that's coming out, that if you haven't had that feeling that made you want to come into this hobby and to stay in this hobby, then something's awry. So again, if you're working towards that, it's great. I think keep going, keep doing what you're doing. But once you get that feeling, it's being here and being a part of this doesn't go away at that point. So it brings me to my next question. Like, you've been collecting comics for a really long time. Do you get the same feeling now that you did then? Do you feel it's as fun as when you first started?
Kind of yes and no. So I think that, I mean, this is a bad analogy, y'all. I am not advocating for heavy drug use, nor do I do heavy drugs. But like that first time I opened up that ASM #1, that high I got that time, it was like it's been unmatched since. It was just it was so overwhelming. And so I've been trying to get these books over time. But it's a different type of enjoyment. I think that I get appreciation from learning new things and talking with people and feeling like I have more of a grasp of comic books. And Lawrence, if I may, I've been thinking about this topic of expertise. Like, what does that mean in comic books? And I'll likely do a video on this, but the idea of something like this is that originally I was on a scale from 1 to 10, Lawrence is, X on that scale for expertise, and then Keston's X on, this scale for him. But the more I think about it, I think it's kind of two parts to it. So I think one part is this foundational knowledge and skill level that people need to get. And today it's a little easier than it was. And so what I mean by that is you need to know what grades are. It used to be you had to grade really well, but if you're buying CGC books, it's do you know what grades are and what they represent? It's second is you need to know where do you get books? Third, you have to have some general knowledge about the different ages of comic books. You have to know what the top 10 or 15 comic books are of each genre and sort of how these things interplay with one another. And you also have to price a comic book, knowing where generally how things are priced, especially if you've got something like GPA analysis or Go Collect or whatnot. If you have all those things, then you're going to be in a position where you can probably buy a book and not lose your tail at it. You know what I mean? Because your knowledge level is high enough that you know where things generally are. But on top of that, then if you have all those things, it's about how much do you know a particular book that you're looking at. And so, for example, more people are, say, experts in Amazing Fantasy 15 than they are a lot of other books. Why? Because it's extremely popular. Many people have looked at a lot of different copies and they know to say, well, hey, people, I mean, any copy's desirable, but you'd rather have a book that doesn't have Marvel chipping if it's got the same grade. So that's like that's something specific to that book. But every book has something like that to it. And do you know about those pieces? So there's a book I have, Exciting Comics number 64. It's one of these airbrushed Schomburg covers. I know that the bottom staple on that book is usually going to be crooked and put in wrong. Why do I know that? Because I've handled dozens of those books in my hand. And somebody else, if they're grading it, for example, they might be like, oh, that's got a bad staple, I'm going to take off points. Well, CGC is not going to take off points for that bottom staple because they're all like that, or most of them are like that because of manufacturing defect. But like that's the level of detail that most folks won't know, unless they really have handled a lot of those books. Or Suspense 3, the top right-hand corner of my book is like a little triangle's off. And you're like, oh, that's bad. That's going to count out off a lot. Well, it turns out that the majority of Suspense 3 has that issue because there's a manufacturing defect. So anyway, that's what I encourage you all to do too, is to say, whatever that little niche is that you have, really learn about those particular books. And then you can have a slight advantage that way by knowing more about that particular type of book.
It's great information. I mean, there's so much stuff that I think a lot of us don't know. I didn't know any of that stuff. I mean, I always say I'm not a huge, I don't know anywhere near some of the information that a lot of golden age collectors do. And I'm just kind of getting into it now. Silver, I have a lot more knowledge because
Sure.
that's really was my wheelhouse forever. But that's great information for everybody out there. So any more questions from anyone out there in the chat? Do me a favor. We got almost 30 people in here now, which is great. Drop them in the chat. I have a couple more for you, and then
Sure.
we'll open it up to everybody else. But so let's jump out of gold for a second and just get into silver. Is there like a title or specific title that you are still looking for, or are you just mainly doing gold now?
I'm mostly doing gold, but Amazing Spider-Man run, like the first 25 issues, has always held a spot in my heart too. I used to have actually a pretty nice run of 1 through 25 and sold most of those actually going after Golden Age. So I kept my ASM 1. But I just like this. I think that's one of the best runs that there is. I mean, like Hulk 1 through 6 is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But if you think about, yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm with you. I'm with you 100% on both of those.
But the thing about Amazing Spider-Man number 1, is there a run that introduces more amazing characters and villains in the first like 20 issues? I just can't name any. I mean, this rocking out like Vulture number 2, number 3 is Doc Ock, 4 is Sandman, 5 you got a Doctor Doom
Crossover,
guest appearance, crossover, 6 you got Lizard, 7 you got Vulture again, blah blah blah. It keeps going on. You got Electro in there somewhere. It's like it's crazy. It's crazy.
I always say to 50, 1 through 50 to me. I mean, it was not only the artwork was a great, the all the introduction to some of the best villains and characters we've ever had in comics, and then storylines. Some of the best storylines are 1 through 50. So yeah, I agree 100%. So I have one more, and then we'll open it up to the chat. But what is your view on speculation and like movie driven books at this point? Obviously I don't hear you talk anything about this stuff, but I wanted to get your opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't do it, and it's mostly because when the movies start really becoming big later on in the first wave of Marvel movies, I'd already gotten to gold, and because of that, like gold is not as affected as much. I mean, like, I guess across some high end dealers, maybe there's more people into Batman, but like Batman's so popular, and those books are just so out there anyway. So yeah, I haven't been so much on them. But I think kind of going back to what we are talking about earlier, Lawrence, I think that the idea is if you want to make money on the movies that come out, you got to buy on the rumor and sell on the news on those types of pieces. And I think too that like, why do people like these books? Do they actually like the characters, or do they um, are just speculating to make money? Again, it's okay if you're speculating to make money, but I think if there's not that much underlying demand for the character, then it's basically a pump and dump scheme. Whether you want to be part of that or not, but that's what it is, because it's like, hey, I don't know, what's that Ant-Man villain, the one with the big head.
I have no idea.
So in
Oh,
Quantum,
wait. You're talking about in the movie. You're talking about.
yeah,
Oh, that's
Quantumania. Yeah,
Modoc.
Modoc, right? And so everybody's like buying up Modoc, and I'm like, did anybody care about Modoc? Like, I'd
No.
vaguely heard of, like, I'm a pretty serious comic book collector and reader as a kid, and I had barely heard about Modoc. And I'm like, I just don't think Modoc is the kind of character that's going to inspire people 20 years from now or 25 years from now. So yeah, if you get in, you better get in early, and you better get out soon.
100%. And then when I said, somebody asked me a question on one of the live streams about a month ago about some of the characters now in the modern age. I'm like, well, where's the history for the characters? Some of these characters have only been around for 10 to 12 years, where we have, Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. They've been around for, God, it's almost 80 years already for almost 80 years for some of these
Yeah.
characters. So, I mean, there's plenty of built up history to be seen for those, as opposed to some of the newer characters. Maybe eventually some of them will get there. Hopefully they do. I think Miles Morales has some legs down the road. I think Spider Gwen has some legs. Outside of them, for me, I'm gonna say no, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, something too that Lawrence, I'd like to share with your audience. I get really fascinated by CGC census and trying to figure out how many books are out there, which is impossible to know, because the census, but how many are in the wild?
Yeah.
Everybody guesses, speculates, but nobody really knows. But what's interesting to me is when you look at really expensive, sought after books, it's a little bit more apples to apples, because say if you got a Hulk 181, it makes sense to get that graded if you wanted to sell it, even in low grade, right? It's expensive enough. But like Hulk 181 in a 9.8, and I think there's like maybe one copy in 9.9, but like 9.8 is typically like the highest rated copy. There's like 150 copies of that book versus like, this book, any copy, any grade, any label, there's like 40. You know what I mean? And so it's like there might be a third of these books as there are Hulk 181s at 9.8. And so I think that, the reason I say that is because it's like when it's that rare, they just don't get affected by movies that much. It's like, because it's like, well, even if you wanted to get your hands on a copy, you probably can't. And how are you going to flip it?
Yeah. So it made me think of another question when you said that. Like,
Yeah.
I see everything, most of the stuff you showed me today was graded, but you do have some raw books. Did you have a preference between graded and raw? You feel like there's more peace of mind with graded books?
Well, one of the things I realized, Lawrence, is I'm not a great grader. And so there's like a max amount of money. It's about $500 to $1,000, somewhere in that range. I'm still comfortable buying raw. But if I'm spending more than $1,000, it's just like, this book got some restoration to it. I don't have the eye to know. Another thing is tough, like the airbrush covers I was showing earlier. Like these, I love high grade books in these, but like to be able to tell between an 8.5, a 9, and a 9.2 to me is really hard. And the difference between an 8.5 and a 9.2 is probably twofold at least in cost.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just don't know if my eye is better than the dealer's who's going to sell it to me. And like, why would a dealer not get it graded, if he truly thought it was a 9.2?
Yeah.
Right. So those are the types of things that I think about. But yeah, I like raw. And I do enjoy like reading books. And I'm another one of those weirdos who I enjoy the smell of comic books too. So all those
I'm the
things,
same way.
yeah, all those things are nice. It's just that once you start getting over $1,000, it was like I'd prefer it to be protected, and the risk of harming, especially like a high grade golden age book for reading it, it's like I'm just not going to open it. I might get like a low grade copy as a reader so I can read through it, but I'm not going to flip through the 8.0 golden age book.
Yeah. So while I'm waiting for anybody else in the chat to see if they have any other questions, I want to remind you guys in the chat, if you're watching this video or watching it on the rewind, please hit that thumbs up button. Hit that thumbs up button. Get this video out there, everyone in the community. It helps me. It helps Keston, just to kind of spread our videos out there in the community. So That's all my questions I have. I'll wait a minute or so to see if anybody has anything else. But is there anything you want to ask me while we're here? We're here. We've been on an hour and 10 minutes. So I was only going to go an hour and a half anyway. So anything else you want to talk about before we go?
Um, well, I thought I would share with your audience something that I do to show you either how serious I am or how ridiculous I am about comic books. So Lawrence, you got a real passion for Amazing Spider-Man series like 1 through 50. I was going after that 1 through 25 run, and I really wanted to know it well. So I would actually try to memorize the covers and what was happening in each book. And before I would go to bed, I would try to recite in order like what's happening in every book and try to remember the image too. And the airbrush covers did the same. So there's 37 covers, and just for a few nights there, I would just try to go through and just say, okay, what's on Exciting 57 cover? What's on Exciting 58? And I just want to make sure that I knew it backwards and forwards. And so the Amazing Spider-Man run at the time, like I could tell you, within 10% what the price would be of any grade of any of those books in 1 through 25. Off the top of my head, I knew them, easily. Same thing with all those airbrush covers. It was like something comes up on eBay, and if it's a good deal, I will know it within 3 seconds. Most books
That's
not that way, but yeah.
I was going to say, I'm the same way, especially when it comes to Amazing Spider-Man, because I'm constantly tracking those books. I do the same thing. So if it's something that you guys collect all the time, like he's talking about the airbrush that he collects, he knows when he sees it, if it's a good deal or not. Continue. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh no, that was just it. And I think that thinking about if you want it to be, let's say, a good investor of comic books, even if it's buy and hold, a lot of it is about getting a good deal on books, and so there's sort of different knowledge areas that you can have, and so one of those strategies is you can know information before other people know it. And so you can take advantage of it that way. And another one is just being more knowledgeable than other people are in particular areas. And so, as I was saying, I'm not an expert in all the golden age, far from it, but there's a few areas that I feel like, the a really good golden age dealer is not going to know as much as I do about those airbrush covers, just because, like I said, I've been going to bed at night thinking about those covers in my brain.
So I have a question from the audience, and then I just thought of one, and then we'll end the stream because I know you got to go and I got some stuff to do. So he's Desired Comics wants to know, Nigel, how you doing, buddy? What are your thoughts on the Silver Age Flash run, Showcase 4, etc.? I know Showcase 4 is really freaking. There's low CGC census on that one too.
Well, Nigel, yeah, I'm really big actually on the Silver Age Flash. I don't think it gets enough attention. Um, it is, I mean, first, Flash is a pretty major character, and for some reason, not getting nearly the love as the Marvel Keys. And Lawrence, just as you were saying, um, I think Showcase 4 has something like 550 copies on census. It's under 600, and that's compared to like AF-15's got, I think, 3,600, and
Yeah.
like X-Men has maybe 6,000 in some, and so you're talking about like 5 to 10 times rarer than these other books. And so tough, and a great cover too. I mean, there he is. The Flash is coming out of the film. Nigel, you just discovered one of those books I didn't want to disclose that I'm trying to get, because I do think that's at a really good value now, because you can get, I think, probably a 3.5 for under 20 grand. So yeah, I love that book.
So someone else just popped in a question. What are your long-term plans for your collection?
Hoard them and then put them in my coffin.
I always said I want to take a couple with me. My AF-15 was always going with me, and my Batman one probably go with me now too. I agree.
Yeah,
Coming
yeah,
with me.
yeah. So, some of the books I have actually, my wife and I drew up a will a couple years ago, and so some of the books I want to give to some people. Actually, I shouldn't say, I haven't even disclosed it to them yet, but I wanted to give it away to them because they enjoy the books, and I think that they would keep them and cherish them. And then the rest, I'd probably, um, whatever my estate sells, sell it and give it to charity, actually, for the books that I really like. Now, of course, if my family is in really economic hardship, then I would sell books. But like, good Lord, I mean, some of the books I have, it would be so hard for me to sell them. I mean, I'd probably sell my house first.
Yeah, I don't blame you either. I agree with you. All right, so I have one more question because I think it's something I always ask that I like to see where people get their books from. So, like, is there a place that you always flock to? Is it eBay? Is it? I heard you mention Comic Connect, the auctions, dealers at shows, comic shops, stuff like that. Where do you go to get most of your books? You think?
Yeah, I would say 95% of my bigger books have come from either Heritage Auctions, Comic Connect, or Comic Link. So those are the three big auction houses. And let me give them all a shout out. Out of hundreds of transactions, I've never had a problem with any of them. They have
That's
always
awesome.
been very professional, very quick getting their stuff to me. So yeah, you start going into eBay, and there's some really good sellers on there, but you got to know who you're talking to. And also, occasionally you get a good deal, buying it at a buy now price from whomever. You tend to get the better deals at auction, in my opinion. So that's typically where I buy them.
All right, there you have it, guys. Keston, I want to thank you for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it, especially because it was such short notice. And like I said, me and you have been trying to connect for a while. So eventually, I'm gonna put something together where I'd like to have a show and have you and a bunch of other guys on, have like a panel and talk, take questions from the audience, and kind of get everybody's opinion and kind of go from there. But again, I really appreciate you coming on.
Lawrence, my pleasure. And I'm actually doing a new series now where I'm having two other channels come and we show books. And so I need to show some more bronze and silver stuff. I know that's where your wheelhouse. So I'm looking forward to having you on there if you accept the invitation.
Absolutely, man. I would definitely be there anytime. Guys, if you haven't subbed Keston's Old School Comics, do me a favor, go ahead, find him, go watch that video he just put out. You will not regret it. He's one of the most knowledgeable. If you guys are watching, you guys can see how knowledgeable he is about all comics. And he's very, very entertaining and puts a lot of work into his videos. And that's what I love about him the most. So again, thank you, Keston, and thank you everyone out there for joining me on this glorious Memorial Day weekend. And that's it. Have a great one, guys. And thank you, Keston.
Okay, bye, y'all.